When an avoidant finally returns, it's not a sign of love. It's a sign that your silence changed the balance of power forever. The moment an avoidant comes back, you hold all the power they once believed you would never claim. They don't return without a reason. Your distance created a shift they never imagined would happen. Suddenly, they are the ones seeking closeness. An avoidant returning is never a coincidence. It is their reaction to the emotional gap they assumed you would never create. When you finally stopped giving too much, explaining too much, and stretching yourself beyond your limits, they felt the loss of the emotional access they always thought would be there for them. It was never your weakness they depended on. It was the steadiness, the peace, the understanding you offered without begging for anything in exchange. When that energy disappears, even the most distant avoidant is forced to face a truth they have run from for years. You are no longer chasing them, and that silence became louder than every conversation you once pleaded to have. This is where your real power begins. Not in your words, but in who you have become while they were gone. You didn't just detach from them. You detached from the old version of yourself who accepted crumbs and called it a relationship. Avoidants return because their internal fear system is triggered not by your presence, but by your absence. They expected you to stay emotionally available forever. They believed that no matter how far they pulled back, you would stand strong for both of you. The moment they see that emotional line drop, their private panic begins. The quiet panic they never show but always feel. And when they do return, you don't need to perform, explain, shrink yourself, or adjust to fit into their emotional limits. You aren't here to rebuild what they repeatedly broke. Your only role now is to stand in the strength you found while they were gone, because the person they walked away from is not the person standing in front of them, and that difference is exactly why the entire dynamic flips. They approach with uncertainty. You respond with certainty. They bring breadcrumbs. You bring boundaries. They seek comfort. You protect your peace. This moment isn't about rejecting them with anger. It's about responding from the calm you earned through healing. The avoidant returns expecting the same emotional environment, the empath who absorbed their distance, the heart that forgave everything, the soul that waited for them to choose you. But what they find instead is someone grounded, steady, self-respecting, and no longer willing to bargain their worth. You don't react, you observe. You don't chase, you choose. You don't collapse into old cycles. You stand firmly in the new one. And that is what frightens them the most. Not your refusal, but your evolution. Because when you rise into your power, the dynamic they depended on dissolves. The avoidant who once ran now stands still, facing the results of their own emotional avoidance. You finally understand that their return is not an invitation to reconnect. It is evidence of how far you've grown without them. Avoidants expect emotional intensity or validation, but your calm voice tells them everything. You are not the same version they could emotionally hide from. When an avoidant comes back, they automatically expect the old pattern. The one where your heart rushed to meet them halfway, where your excitement softened every edge, where your emotions filled every empty space they left behind. They expect you to feel relieved, eager, thankful even. They expect the familiar emotional cushion that made their detachment feel safe. But when you answer with calm neutrality, their entire script collapses. Your silence becomes the message they feared the most. Not angry silence, not cold silence, but a grounded, composed silence. The kind that does not punish them, but reveals their own behavior. The kind that shows you are no longer tangled in their inconsistency. This is the moment they realize the emotional power you once handed to them now belongs to you again. And nothing shakes an avoidant more than realizing the person they assumed would always be emotionally available has become unbothered. Staying calm doesn't mean pretending. It means you genuinely don't feel the same internal urgency anymore. It means their return does not stir the anxiety it once did. It means their presence, their apology, or their attempt to reconnect does not throw you into emotional confusion. You see their return clearly as a cycle, a pattern, a reflex triggered by your silence rather than by genuine change. And instead of feeding that cycle with emotion, you meet it with clarity. When you respond without over-explaining, without giving too much, without bending yourself to soothe them, the avoidant feels something unfamiliar: accountability. Not the kind that comes from arguments or dramatic talks, but the silent kind that comes from you no longer offering emotional warmth they have not earned. They can't hide behind excuses about being overwhelmed because your calm removes that excuse. They can't claim that things got too intense because your energy is balanced and steady. Your neutrality shines a light on their inconsistency rather than on your heart. The avoidant becomes extremely aware in that moment. They notice your tone, they notice your pauses, they notice your simplicity. They sense the shift instantly, even if they never admit it out loud. This is not the person who waited for their messages, reread their words, or tried to interpret their silences. This is not the person who tolerated emotional distance and still came back with softness. This is not the person they could walk away from and assume would be unchanged. The person standing in front of them now carries emotional self-respect, and that is something an avoidant does not know how to handle. Calmness becomes your strength because it communicates the one truth they never prepared for. You no longer need their validation. And once you stop seeking their approval, they lose the emotional leverage they relied on to keep the connection uneven. Your neutrality shifts the whole dynamic. It shows them that the distance they created did not simply give them space, it gave you clarity. And once you reach that level of calm, they can feel it right away. You are not impressed that they returned. You are simply no longer attached to their chaos. There is no soft excitement. There is no rush to fix things. There is no emotional pressure. There is only self-respect. You show them that disappearing is not a behavior you accept anymore. When an avoidant returns, they expect you to greet them with softness, the same softness that once made it effortless for them to leave. They imagine the door they walked out of is still open, untouched, waiting for them just as they left it. They expect their absence to be ignored, dismissed, or forgiven simply because they decided to show up again. But this is exactly where your new self stands firm. Their return is not something you celebrate. It is simply the outcome of their own choices. Avoidants do not come back because they suddenly developed emotional strength. They come back because the emotional safety net they depended on has disappeared. Your presence was stable. Your attention was consistent. Your heart was predictable in the gentlest way. And when that disappears, they feel a shift they do not know how to process. But that shift is not a reward for them. It is a reminder. And you are not responsible for soothing the discomfort created by their choices. So when they reach out, your job is not to pour warmth into the space created by their absence. Your job is to stay grounded, steady, and clear. Because rewarding an avoidant's disappearance teaches them to repeat it. Every time you show excitement when they come back, you confirm their belief that pulling away costs them nothing. That silence does not affect your loyalty, that they can vanish and return without losing emotional access to you. But when you respond with balanced energy, not cold, not harsh, just self-respecting, something powerful happens. They feel the boundary they never expected you to build. Your lack of instant emotional reassurance becomes the wall they never saw coming. Avoidants rely on the idea that you will always be emotionally available, whether they are or not. When they realize that access now requires consistency instead of random reappearances, the dynamic changes forever. You are not rejecting them out of revenge. You are rejecting the pattern that harmed you. And an avoidant can feel that shift instantly. Your tone, your pacing, your lack of urgency. All of it tells them the emotional world they left behind no longer exists. You're not fighting to win them back. You're not holding the connection together. You're not trying to ease their discomfort after they created discomfort for you. Instead, you are honoring your own growth. The truth is simple. Avoidants only learn through boundaries, not through emotional cushioning. By refusing to reward their absence, you teach them a lesson they've avoided their entire lives. Closeness has value, and distance has a cost. It's not revenge, it's alignment. It's not punishment, it's protection. It's not coldness, it's clarity. And once they feel that clarity, they finally understand something you always knew. Access to you is a privilege, not a promise. When you say something simple like, "What made you reach out?" you force them to confront the gap between their distance and their desire. Avoidance feels safest when the emotional spotlight is not on them, when they can slip in and out without accountability, without explaining anything, without owning the impact of their absence. They love ambiguity because ambiguity shields them from responsibility. It lets them return without addressing why they left, and it gives them the illusion that connection can be paused like a movie and resumed whenever they want. But one grounded question destroys that illusion. Asking them what made them reach out now is not aggressive. It is not emotional, dramatic, or confrontational. It is simply direct. And directness is the one thing avoidants have always struggled with because it forces them to face the emotional patterns they try so hard to hide. It makes them see the inconsistency they protect, the distance they justify, and the withdrawal they treat as normal. This one simple question pushes them into a moment of unwanted self-reflection. For someone who has spent years avoiding emotional awareness, this question feels like a gentle spotlight they were not ready to stand under. It is soft, but it is also a mirror, and it is a mirror they never expected you to hold up. Avoidance returns secretly wishing to slip past the emotional truth of the situation. They hope they can come back, and everything will slide into place without acknowledging their disappearance. They imagine you will be so relieved by their presence that you will never question their absence. So when you calmly ask this grounded question, you disrupt the emotional autopilot they have always depended on. Suddenly, they are the one being asked to explain something, not you. They are the one standing in uncertainty. They are the one being gently pushed into emotional exposure, even if only for a brief moment. And the real power of this question is its simplicity. You are not accusing them of anything. You are not demanding explanations. You are not pouring out emotion. You are simply creating emotional accountability without any emotional intensity. They can no longer hide behind shallow lines like, "I was overwhelmed," or "I needed time." Those excuses fall apart when held next to your calm clarity. Your question shines a quiet light on the contradiction between their distance and their return. If they needed space, why come back now? If they weren't ready for closeness, then what changed? If they disappeared without care, why assume they can just walk in again without repair? The avoidant feels this shift in their body even if they never admit it. Your calm tone stays steady, but the emotional dynamic flips completely. For the first time, they are being asked to step into a level of emotional responsibility they have run from in every relationship. And what makes this moment so powerful is that you're not asking to fix the connection. You're asking to understand their intention. There is no chasing in your question, no fear, no emotional pleading, just clarity. This moment becomes a test, not for you, but for them. Can they handle directness? Can they acknowledge the inconsistency in their behavior? Can they meet your calm truth without collapsing into the patterns they always rely on? No matter how they respond, honestly, vaguely, defensively, or not at all, the question itself tells you everything. It exposes whether they want to genuinely reconnect or if they simply want to access what they lost. Avoidants rely heavily on your empathy. They depend on your softness. But when you stay emotionally guarded, for the first time they feel a boundary. For so long, your heart was the open door they assumed they could enter and exit without consequence. You were the emotional foundation, the warmth, the reliability they expected to always be there. This is exactly why closing that emotional door now is so powerful. Not slamming it, not locking it, just gently closing it with intention. That alone changes everything. Keeping the door closed does not mean being cold. It does not mean being cruel. It means understanding that empathy without limits becomes self-betrayal. It means not reopening emotional space for someone who treated it carelessly and used it only when convenient. Avoidants move through relationships with the belief that your compassion will always forgive them, that your softness will always welcome them back, that your love will always smooth over the harm their distance created. But when you finally protect your emotional space, they meet a version of you they truly never expected to encounter. A version that chooses healing over history. A version that honors your own needs before their patterns. Your guardedness is not punishment, it is self-respect. You're not withholding affection to manipulate the situation. You're not creating distance to gain control. You're simply not giving the unconditional emotional access you once offered freely. And avoidants feel this change immediately. They sense it in your tone, your timing, your replies. You're not emotionally available by default anymore. You're intentional now. You're selective. You choose where your heart goes instead of handing it over automatically. Avoidants fear emotional responsibility, but they also fear emotional loss. When you no longer give them free access to your feelings, it creates a deep conflict inside them. Their desire for closeness collides violently with their fear of vulnerability. Your closed emotional door forces them to face this tension in a way they cannot avoid. It shows them what a real boundary feels like, not one based on anger, but one rooted in genuine self-worth. And this is the kind of boundary they can't escape. By keeping the emotional door closed, you communicate something they never imagined hearing from you. Their return does not guarantee your openness. You are not impressed by their timing. You are not softened by their reappearance. You are not eager to accommodate their sudden curiosity. You have finally learned that access to your inner world requires consistency, not disappearance. And this time, that is something they must earn, not something you simply hand over again. This is the moment the avoidant begins to understand the true cost of their emotional distance. They're not just losing the relationship, they're losing the version of you who tolerated the imbalance, the version who carried the emotional weight for both of you, the version who loved them past their fear. And once you protect your growth, something inside you changes permanently. You stop offering emotional availability to someone who only valued you intermittently. You step into a new form of strength. And that strength becomes the very lesson they were never prepared to face. Using short, steady responses is part of this shift. You don't over-explain. You don't chase. You don't pour emotional labor into the space. You give calm, balanced answers. And they feel the difference instantly. When avoidants return, they expect you to slide back into old emotional roles. The one who softened every conflict, who soothed their distance, who explained the meaning behind their silence. They relied on you to carry both sides of the emotional exchange. They depended on your ability to interpret their mixed signals and reassure them even when they gave you nothing. But when you move into reflection instead of validation, their entire emotional system collapses. Avoidance feels safest when you fill in the blanks for them, when you assume good intentions, soften their inconsistency, and cushion their discomfort. But the moment you stop doing that, the moment you let their behavior stand on its own, they suddenly feel exposed, not blamed, not attacked, just seen. and being seen is the one thing they've spent their entire life trying to avoid. This is why reflecting their energy is so powerful. It turns their own patterns into the mirror they always dodge. Your short, neutral responses say something they never expected: emotional neutrality. You're not trying to pull them back. You're not grasping for the connection. You're not melting because they reached out. You're simply responding with the same level of energy they bring, and this frightens them far more than confrontation ever could. Avoidants are prepared to run from emotional intensity. They have rehearsed that escape route. But they are never prepared for indifference. Your calmness removes the emotional fog they hide in. Your simplicity removes their excuses. Your steady tone forces them to face how little effort they contributed. Matching their energy does not mean being cold or robotic. It means not overgiving when they underdeliver. If they take hours to reply, you don't answer right away. If they send vague messages, you don't turn them into poetry in your mind. If they offer minimal effort, you don't respond with emotional depth. You hold your center. You stay balanced. You mirror instead of mend. And in this reflection, they meet themselves. Avoidants are not used to someone who doesn't chase certainty or reassurance. They are used to exits, not accountability. But your calm, grounded responses gently guide them into a space where they must either rise or leave, and either choice protects your peace. By validating nothing, you are not punishing them. You are simply no longer rewarding behavior that once drained your spirit. You are creating an emotional environment they have never experienced with you before. And in that environment, your power returns to you completely, one where their inconsistency no longer triggers anything inside you and their return no longer earns a reward. They feel this shift immediately. The lack of emotional cushioning, the missing urgency, the calm steadiness that once felt impossible for you to show. And in this new space, they finally discover the truth. Your heart isn't chasing anymore. Your emotions aren't overflowing anymore. Your energy is no longer rescuing theirs. You aren't withholding validation. You're simply not giving it away freely like before. And this is the moment the avoidant finally senses what they always feared quietly. They are no longer the emotional center of your world. You can say something simple like, "I'm not interested in reopening this connection. I've moved on." Straightforward, clear, clean. Boundaries aren't punishment. They are clarity. And clarity is the last thing avoidants expect from you because they grew accustomed to you softening your truth just to keep the connection alive. They remember the version of you who softened your needs, who swallowed disappointments, who tried to carry the relationship even when they did nothing to carry you. They expect hesitation. They expect emotional wobbling. They expect you to bend, to negotiate, to keep the door slightly open in case they decide to wander back again. But when you speak a boundary calmly with no emotional explosion behind it, you introduce a version of yourself they never imagined. A boundary spoken without anger is a boundary built from growth. You're not raising your voice, you're raising your standards. You're not rejecting them, you are choosing yourself. And avoidants feel that difference instantly. They hear it in your tone, in your steady delivery, in the simplicity of your words. You aren't asking for anything. You aren't waiting for anything. You aren't bargaining for closure or answers. You're simply stating the reality you stand in now. And that is why the boundary lands with such force. Avoidants often rely on your emotional flexibility. They assume you will trade your needs to keep their presence. They depend on you softening your truth to protect their comfort. But a boundary that is clean and grounded is the ultimate disruption to their emotional pattern. It leaves no space for misunderstanding, no emotional wiggle room, no cracks to slip through. It forces them to finally face the truth that the relationship they treated so casually is the one you are now releasing with intention. When you say, "I've moved forward," you are not trying to persuade them. You're stating something you learned through healing rather than hurt. And the avoidant feels the weight of that because it isn't reactive, it's resolved. There is no emotional spike for them to hide behind, no argument to deflect, no intensity to blame. There is only your quiet certainty and their private awareness that they shaped this outcome themselves. Boundaries spoken with calm energy create the emotional accountability they have been dodging for years. They can't run from it, they can't downplay it, they can't twist it to protect their ego. Your calmness forces them to recognize that their absence wasn't neutral, it had consequences. Their silence didn't disappear into the background, it left a mark. Their distancing didn't protect them, it left them alone. And when you stay firm in your boundary, something inside you transforms too. You realize you're no longer trying to hold on to someone who couldn't hold on to you. You're no longer fighting for a connection built on uneven ground. You're no longer shrinking to make space for their fear. A clear boundary isn't the end of your strength. It's proof that you finally learned to honor it. And this is why it lands harder than anger ever could. When the conversation ends, don't linger. Don't reopen anything. Walking away first removes the final piece of their emotional leverage. Because as long as the conversation keeps going, the avoidant still feels a sense of control, a belief that they still have access to your attention and energy. Avoidants feel safe when you stay engaged, still responding, still affected in some way. Even if the tone is neutral, your continued presence lets them maintain a thin thread of connection without having to offer any real intimacy. But when you walk away first, that thread snaps, and it's the one thing their emotional system never learned to prepare for. Avoidants move through life by managing distance. They feel secure by controlling how close or far things go. When they come back, they expect to dictate the pace, slow, cautious, and only on terms that keep them comfortable. They return assuming they still have the emotional authority they once held, that you'll wait for them to choose how deep or shallow the moment becomes. Walking away first flips that entire dynamic instantly. It tells them, you don't decide the access anymore, I do. Leaving calmly is not abandonment, it's closure on your terms. You're not storming off. You're not punishing them. You're not creating chaos. You're simply ending the interaction with the same clarity you carried throughout. And avoidants feel this more profoundly than any long emotional discussion. They may hide it, but they feel the shift. The loss of you as their quiet emotional safety net. The loss of your attention. The loss of the subtle reassurance you once provided without thinking. When you deliver your boundary and then walk away, you send the message without repeating it. You give them nothing to argue with, nothing to push against, nothing to twist. Avoidants excel at living in gray zones, keeping conversations half open, lingering in connections without ever committing to them. But your decision to end the moment closes the gray. It brings everything into sharp focus. The access they once relied on no longer exists, not partially, not conditionally, but completely. This is where your growth becomes undeniable, because walking away used to feel impossible for you. You used to cling to every word, every pause, every small promise that maybe this time everything would be different. You used to wait for them to end the interaction first, afraid that speaking up or stepping back meant losing them entirely. But now you understand something deeper. Losing someone who cannot meet you emotionally is not loss, it is freedom. Walking away is not about proving anything. It's about protecting your peace. It's about breaking the cycle that kept you emotionally trapped. It's about reclaiming the power you handed them slowly while trying to love someone who didn't know how to stay. And the moment you end things calmly, confidently, without hesitation, the avoidant finally feels the truth. They didn't just lose contact with you. They lost access to the version of you who tolerated emotional gaps. And that kind of rejection is louder than any spoken no. Silence is the one response they never imagine receiving from you. Because for so long, you were the one filling the distance, explaining, clarifying, repairing, reaching out. You were the emotional anchor, the stabilizer, the glue holding everything together while they hid behind emotional distance. But when you choose silence, something changes. Not loudly, not harshly, not with drama. It changes in the same quiet they used to keep control, except this time your silence isn't avoidance, it's closure. Your silence isn't punishment, it's a line, a declaration that you're done engaging with inconsistency. It's the moment you stop being the one who offers emotional safety to someone who rarely offered it back. Avoidants underestimate silence because they used it like armor. They assumed you would always fill it, always respond, always reach. They depended on your emotional openness to bridge their emotional absence. But when the roles shift and you choose calm stillness instead of another explanation, something inside them wakes up. Because silence, real silence, does what words never can. It cuts access. Not access to your voice, but access to your emotional presence. The very thing that made them feel steady even when they pretended it didn't matter. Your quiet refusal becomes the truth they can't escape. They finally see you're not angry, you're not hurt, you're not waiting for apology, clarity, or reconciliation. You are simply finished. And this is the moment the avoidant realizes the depth of what they lost. They didn't lose you because you slammed a door. They didn't lose you because of an argument. They lost you because the version of you who accepted emotional imbalance no longer exists. Silence isn't revenge. It's evolution. It's what happens when someone grows past the chaos they once tolerated. Avoidants can ignore messages. They can dismiss emotion. They can dodge difficult conversations. But they cannot outrun the impact of silence. Silence forces them to sit with themselves, with their patterns, with the truth they avoided. When you refuse to engage, you close the last opening they counted on. You end the cycle quietly. You walk away without waiting. You reclaim your energy without debate. And in that moment, the avoidant finally understands you didn't walk away out of anger, you walked away out of clarity. And nothing is louder than that. Rejection hits different when it comes from someone who once held space for them. Avoidants are familiar with distance. Silence is their default. They're used to people pulling back out of frustration or exhaustion. But what they never anticipate is your growth. Because when you reject an avoidant from a place of clarity, not hurt, not confusion, it hits deeper. It's the shift they never expected. When the person who once poured into them no longer needs them, misses them, or waits for them, something inside them cracks. You're not rejecting them to punish them. You're rejecting them because you have grown into someone who no longer fits into the old dynamic. And that difference, that evolution, is what shakes them. At first, they feel confusion. Avoidants assume you will always be available emotionally, always patient, always forgiving. They relied on the version of you who absorbed their inconsistency, the version who thought love meant trying harder, the version who tried to break down their walls instead of walking away. But that version of you is gone. Now you respond differently. Your energy is calm. Your tone is even. Your boundaries stand. You don't chase, negotiate, or explain. You reject them with quiet certainty. And that calm truth is what cuts deepest. It tells them everything they ignored when they still had access to you. It tells them you're not emotionally tied anymore. It tells them you've stepped into self-worth. It tells them you're capable of choosing peace over potential. Avoidants don't feel the impact of losing someone until the emotional atmosphere changes. It's not your absence that wakes them. It's your evolution. It's the moment they can no longer reach the old version of you, the one who cared too deeply, who tried too hard, who held them through their fear. Your growth becomes the mirror they cannot look away from, and suddenly their distance doesn't feel like protection. It feels like the very thing that pushed away the one person who truly saw them. Rejection from the evolved you isn't loud or emotional. It's a door closed gently with no bitterness behind it, and that makes it final, because once you grow past the wound that bonded you to them, you never shrink back. You don't bend yourself to fit their emotional comfort again. You don't dim your emotional strength to match their fear. You rise, and they feel the distance not as abandonment, but as consequence. In the end, rejecting an avoidant the right way isn't about hurting them. It's about honoring yourself. It's about recognizing that you have outgrown the version of you who accepted less than they deserved. That is evolution. And that is the chapter they never expected you to reach without them.